A gym's type franchise is fundamentally different from a employment relationship. In a normal company, what you have is a pyramid like this. You have your boss up there, you have your managers, you have your subordinates like that. Our system at gyms, our way of seeing things is entirely different. We actually, in our diagrams, we put the customer at the top. The customer pays the franchisee. The franchisee pays the franchisor pays national, or what we call the divisional franchisor, the person in charge of the division. And the franchisee, via the franchisor, pays the administration centre. Now, in our view, a person who pays you for providing a service is a customer. So we'd say, who is the franchisee's customer? Well, obviously, it's the customer who pays, gets their antenna put up or their dog washed. Who is the franchisor's customer? Well, the franchisor's customer is the franchisee. So rather than being the boss or the employer, you're actually the service provider. And of course, national or divisional, we are the service provider to the franchisors and the franchisees who are our customers. And the administration centre, the customers are the franchisees and the franchisors who pay them. Now, this is important because there's a fundamental difference between a customer and an employee, and it's this. If I was your boss, and I don't like the way that you're doing your job, and you don't like the way that I'm doing my job, as your boss, I would speak to you a little more sternly, possibly, than you would speak to me, if you've got typical experience of the workplace. Okay? But if I was coming to mow your lawns, and you weren't happy with my service, and I wasn't happy with the way you were keeping your garden, you as the customer would be the person that would have the more right to speak to me than I would to speak to them. In other words, I would speak more politely to you. So our view is, while a boss actually can be a little bit less polite, you might say, if you're speaking to a customer, you need to be more polite. So our view is this: if any of our franchisees get into a dispute with a customer, it doesn't matter what the customer has said or done. If they were ever to be rude, or worse still, to swear, or to do anything like that, then that'd be terrible. It'd be an absolutely shocking breach of ethics, no matter what the customer does, simply because that is the customer. But the same thing applies exactly to our franchisors and our franchisees. Now, we would encourage our franchisees to be polite in all their dealings, but the fact of the matter is, no matter how difficult a franchisee might be, it is never justified for a franchisor to be rude to them, discourteous, dismissive, insulting, anything like that. In any such case, if it came to my attention, which it often would be dealt with quite seriously. And the same thing applies to franchisors and national and divisional. They're our customers, we treat them with respect. At the same time we treat somebody with respect, if you're a service provider to somebody, you know more about that business than they do. So for example, if we had a franchisee approached by a customer, let's say it was computer services, and the customer said, I want this illegal software to be put on my machine, or I'd like something put on my computer that the franchisee knows could damage it. The franchisee is going to say, look, I'm very sorry, no, I can't help you. Because even though the customer is a customer, and we treat them with courtesy and respect, because we value them and because we're genuinely interested in their welfare, we won't allow anything to happen that would damage their interests. And the same thing applies to the franchisee and the franchisor. A franchisor will treat a franchisee with the greatest respect because the franchisor wants the franchisee to succeed. But if the franchisee is doing something like failing to return phone calls, which is hurting their business, as well as that of everybody else, but mainly their business, the franchisor must come in and say, Bill, look, we really have to solve this problem, and exercise leadership as a mentor should. It's all very well to talk about equality. Our ethos is a very egalitarian one. We like to give franchisees a strong position in relationship to franchisor. How do we make this happen? Well, we actually do it by what we built into the contract. For example, there's a whole lot of things in the gym's contract which are extremely unusual in terms of franchising. I mean, one of the things I've already talked about is the fact that we provide training before a franchisee starts. so they know exactly what they're getting, exactly what privileges and what obligations they have. We think that's very important. But in the contract, there's a number of different clauses. For example, our franchisees can work where they want. They get right of first refusal to their own territory, but if there's a vacant job outside their territory, they can take it. If they get a referral from somebody because they've done great work, even in somebody else's territory, they can take it. They can't advertise there, but they can take that particular job, because we don't want our franchisees to be restricted at all. If they do great work, do lots of referrals, lots of customers, they're there. A customer can never be taken off a franchisee without their consent, unless the customer complains. Absolute right of goodwill. We can't even phone or contact a franchisee's customers without their permission. That's how strongly we take that right of ownership of goodwill. A lead fee is paid once and once only ever. If a franchisee gets the job, if that person brings back 5 years later, that job goes automatically back to them if they need it, if they want it, and there's no more lead fees paid. Very important point. When I set this system up, and that was back in 1989, I wanted something that I would want to join if I was a franchisee. And I've always been an ambitious person, and I wanted to build a major business. So what I did is put into the contract something that says that a franchisee can build their business without limit, can have any number of employees or contractors, provided they only look after the customers. They don't have to buy an extra franchise. They don't have to pay any extra fees. The only extra fees, if they take more leads, of course, they pay more lead fees. Now, we had a franchisee in Melbourne who turned over $1 million in a year, had 15 or so employees, used to come in and pay fees. He used to laugh about it. He had about $360 per month. That was his typical fee. In fact, our top earning franchisee now, last financial year, turned over $2.5 million. One franchisee paying one fee, and not much more than anybody else. Done a lot of commercial work in that particular sense.